You're sitting there staring at your banking app, or maybe you've just sold something, a business, a car, a collection of old vinyl records, and suddenly you have this lump sum of cash. It's not life-changing money in the sense of buying a private island, but it's enough to matter. It's enough that if you mess it up, you're going to kick yourself for a decade. And naturally, your brain starts spiraling. Do you buy the shiny yellow metal that has survived empires collapsing and wars tearing the world apart? Or do you do what your parents did and what their parents did? Do you buy the four walls and a roof? Do you buy a piece of dirt? It's this weird tug of war we all play in our heads. Gold feels like safety. Real estate feels like, well, it feels like adulthood. But honestly, if you strip away the emotions, the marketing, and the Instagram gurus screaming at you to buy crypto, you're left with a cold, hard math problem. And the funny thing is, most people get the answer wrong because they're comparing apples to oranges. They look at the price of gold today versus the price of a house today, and they think that's the comparison. It's not. My name is Bob, and I spend way too much time thinking about money, financial psychology, and why some people seem to effortlessly build wealth while others stay stuck in the same financial patterns for decades. I don't just look at the spreadsheets. I look at the behavior behind the spreadsheets because the math is useless if you can't stick to the plan. So today we're going to dig into the nitty-gritty. We're going to take a hypothetical stack of cash, let's say 100 grand, and we're going to put it in a cage match against itself. In one corner, you've got the barbarous relic, gold. In the other, you've got the American dream, real estate. We're going to look at leverage, taxes, headaches, and inflation. And I think by the end of this, you're going to see that the winner isn't what you expected it to be. It might completely shift how you view building wealth, and more importantly, how you view your time. Let's start with the elephant in the room, the psychological baggage. When you think about gold, what do you picture? Do you picture Scrooge McDuck swimming in a vault? Do you picture pirates? There's this primal, lizard brain attraction to gold. It's heavy. It's pretty. It doesn't rust. For thousands of years, this has been the definition of money. And honestly, there is a massive comfort in that. When the stock market is crashing, when politicians are arguing, when the world feels like it's spinning off its axis, gold just sits there. It doesn't care. It's unbothered. Real estate, on the other hand, is messy. It's physical. It breaks. Trees fall on roofs. Toilets overflow at 2 a.m. on a Sunday. Tenants stop paying rent and then refuse to leave, and suddenly you're in court reading landlord-tenant statutes instead of enjoying your weekend. So, right off the bat, you have to ask yourself, what is your tolerance for pain? Because the math we're about to do doesn't account for the stress of a phone call from a screaming tenant. But let's put the stress aside for a second and talk about the raw mechanics of wealth creation. This is where it gets interesting, and this is where most people misunderstand the game. The biggest mistake investors make is comparing the price of an asset to the value of an asset. If you have $100,000, you can buy $100,000 worth of gold. Simple. You have 100 ounces of gold, give or take depending on the day. You hold it. You wait. Now let's look at real estate. You take that same $100,000. You go to a bank and you say, hey, I want to buy a rental property. The bank looks at your credit, looks at your income, and hopefully they approve you. They lend you $300,000 more. Suddenly, you have $400,000 working for you. This is a concept called leverage. It's the single most powerful tool in real estate, and it's a tool that gold simply does not have. You cannot go to a bank and get a loan to buy gold at 2-to-1 leverage easily. If the market turns against you, they'll liquidate you so fast your head will spin. But with real estate, the bank is your partner. They put up 75% of the money. You put up 25%. Yet, you get 100% of the appreciation. Let's do some quick back-of-the-napkin math here, because this is the real math part of the title, right? Let's say both assets appreciate by 5% this year. On the gold side, you own $100,000 worth. It goes up 5%. You made $5,000. Great. You're happy. On the real estate side, you control a $400,000 asset. It goes up 5%. The house increased in value by $20,000. But wait, you only put in $100,000 of your own money. So your return on investment, your cash-on-cash return, is actually 20%. You made $20,000 profit on a $100,000 investment. Do you see the difference? In gold, a 5% move is just a 5% move. In real estate, thanks to leverage, a 5% move on the asset price becomes a 20% move on your actual cash. That is geometric growth versus linear growth. Over 10 or 20 years, that gap becomes a canyon. You're basically using the bank's money to float your boat. And honestly, it feels like cheating, but it's not. It's just how the game is played. But, and this is a big but, we can't just look at the gross numbers. We have to look at what's bleeding out of the bucket. This is where the gold bugs start laughing at real estate investors. Because while you're making that 20% return on paper, you're also writing checks every month. Let's talk about the silent killers of real estate. You have your mortgage payment, which is mostly interest in the beginning. You have property taxes, which, by the way, never go down. They just keep going up to pay for things you might not even use, like a new school district 3 towns over. You have insurance. You have HOA fees if you bought in a condo complex. And then the big one, maintenance. There's a rule of thumb in the real estate world that you should set aside 1% to 2% of the purchase price every year for repairs. On a $400,000 house, that's $4,000 to $8,000 a year just waiting to be spent. That's a new roof. That's a HVAC system dying in the middle of July. That's water damage from a washing machine hose that burst. Gold doesn't ask you for $8,000 a year. Gold doesn't care if the roof leaks. You pay a small storage fee, maybe 0.5% a year, or you bury it in the backyard, which I do not recommend, by the way. The cost of carry for gold is incredibly low. The cost of carry for real estate is high. So, when we run the numbers, we have to subtract all those expenses from your appreciation to find your net return. This brings us to the next major difference, cash flow. This is the part that pays for your groceries. Gold produces zero cash flow. Zero. A bar of gold sitting in a safe for 30 years is still just a bar of gold. It doesn't send you a dividend check. It doesn't pay your electricity bill. To get money from gold, you have to sell it. You're eating the goose that lays the golden eggs, hoping there's still some meat on the bone later. Real estate, if you bought it right, puts money in your pocket every month. After you pay the mortgage, the taxes, the insurance, and the repair fund, there should be something left over. That is passive income. That is money that changes your tax bracket or pays for a vacation or allows you to quit a job you hate. I've seen this change people's lives. I remember a friend of mine, let's call him Dave. Dave was terrified of the stock market. He didn't understand P ratios, and he thought crypto was a scam. So he bought a duplex. He lived in one side, rented out the other. The tenant basically paid his mortgage. 10 years later, Dave's equity is huge, but more importantly, he's used that rental income to start a business he loves. He couldn't have done that if his money was sitting in a vault doing nothing. That cash flow buys you options. It buys you freedom of time. Now, we have to talk about the government because Uncle Sam wants a cut of the pie. And this is where the conversation shifts from what makes more money to what keeps more money. Taxes are the biggest expense of your life. It's probably higher than your housing or your food costs combined over a lifetime. So, how you structure your investments matters. If you buy gold, hold it for a year, and sell it for a profit, that's a collectible. You get taxed at a higher capital gains rate, up to 28% federally, depending on the current laws. You win, but the government wins with you. Real estate? Oh, real estate is the government's favorite child. They want you to provide housing, so they give you perks. First, there's depreciation. This is a phantom loss. The government says, hey, your house is getting older and falling apart, so we'll let you pretend that it's losing value on paper. You can take that paper loss and deduct it from your rental income, meaning you pay zero taxes on that monthly cash flow. Even though in reality, the house is probably going up in value, you get to tell the IRS you're losing money. It's perfectly legal, and honestly, it's one of the best wealth secrets out there. And then, when you sell, there's the 1031 exchange. Let's say you sell that $400,000 house for $500,000. You have a $100,000 gain. If you do this right, you can roll that entire $500,000 into a bigger property, and you pay zero taxes. Zero. You defer the tax indefinitely. You can keep doing this until you die, passing on massive wealth to your heirs with a step-up in basis. You can't do that with gold. You sell gold, you pay the tax. Period. Real estate offers this incredible shield against the tax man that allows your money to compound much faster because it's not being constantly nibbled away by taxes. But let's step back from the spreadsheets for a second and talk about liquidity, because there is a scenario where math doesn't matter. Liquidity means how fast can I turn this into cash to buy groceries if I lose my job? If you have gold, you can drive to a coin shop, walk in, and sell it. You can have cash in hand in an hour. It is liquid. It is fungible. 1 ounce of gold is the same as any other ounce of gold. Real estate is the opposite of liquid. Selling a house is a nightmare process. You have to clean it, paint it, stage it, list it, find an agent, hold open houses, negotiate with buyers who want you to pay for their closing costs, wait for inspections, wait for the bank to approve the buyer, and then wait 30 days to close. It takes months. And if you need the money now, like tomorrow, you're going to have to sell at a massive discount. You're going to leave a lot of money on the table just to get out fast. So we have to weigh this. Do you want the higher potential returns of real estate with the understanding that your money is locked away in concrete? Or do you want the accessibility of gold, knowing that it won't grow as fast? Here's something people don't talk about enough, too. The drunken sailor's theory. I call it that because money is like a drunken sailor. It has a knack for wandering off and disappearing if you don't tie it down. If you have $100,000 in gold, it's pretty easy to keep. It's heavy. It's in a safe. You're not going to accidentally spend a bar of gold on a new TV or a weekend trip to Vegas. Real estate is hard to spend. You can't swipe your house to buy a latte. You have to refinance or sell. That friction is actually a good thing for most of us. It forces us to save. It forces us to build equity because the money isn't liquid enough to impulse buy. It's like a forced savings account that beats inflation. But there is another side to the human element. Real estate can ruin relationships. I've seen partnerships dissolve over who is supposed to call the plumber. I've seen marriages strained by the stress of being a landlord. Gold asks nothing of you. It demands no time. It demands no emotional energy. It sits there and waits. You have to ask yourself, what is your time worth? I was looking at property a few years ago. It was a great deal on paper. The numbers worked. The cap rate was good. But I walked away. Why? Because the tenants were still in it, and they were, let's just say, they were difficult people. I sat there calculating the return, and I realized, if I make an extra $200 a month, but I spend 10 hours a month dealing with headaches, I'm paying myself $20 an hour to be miserable. That's not wealth. That's a job. Gold doesn't call you on the weekend. So what does this leave us? We've run the math. We've looked at the leverage. We've looked at the taxes. We've looked at the headaches. If we're looking strictly at the real math of wealth accumulation, ignoring the stress, ignoring the headaches, ignoring the 3 a.m. phone calls, real estate wins. It's not even close. The leverage multiplies your returns, the tax laws protect your profits, and the cash flow pays your bills. Over a 30-year horizon, that $100,000 in real estate is likely to turn into millions. That $100,000 in gold is likely to turn into a few $100,000. But, and this is a huge but, life isn't a spreadsheet. You can't eat ROI. You can't live in a spreadsheet cell. There's a massive value in peace of mind. I think the smartest investors, the ones who sleep well at night, don't pick a side. They realize these aren't enemies. They're teammates playing different positions. Gold is your defense. It's the asset you own when the world is on fire. It's the asset you own to preserve purchasing power when the dollar is collapsing. It's your insurance policy. You don't buy insurance to make money. You buy it so you don't lose everything. Real estate is your offense. It's the asset you use to go out and score points. It's the engine of growth. It's how you build a legacy. If you put 100% of your money into gold, you're safe, but you're poor. You're treading water. You're preserving your wealth, but you aren't really building it. If you put 100% of your money into real estate, you might get rich, but you're also fragile. If interest rates spike, or if the local economy collapses and jobs leave town, your real estate becomes a liability. It becomes a concrete weight around your neck that you can't get rid of. The real math isn't about picking a winner in a vacuum. The real math is about allocation. It's about asking yourself, what do I need right now? If you are young, you have energy, and you have a high tolerance for risk and stress, you load up on real estate. You use that leverage. You work hard. You deal with the tenants. You let the math compound in your favor. If you are older, or you're burned out, or you just want to enjoy your life without worrying about a water heater breaking, you shift your allocation toward gold. You trade the potential for higher returns for the guarantee of quiet. So, which one will make you more money? Technically, real estate. But money isn't the only variable in the equation of a good life. We started this conversation with that feeling of looking at your bank account and wondering where to put your trust. It's a scary thing, having to make decisions that affect your future. But I hope you see now that you don't have to be perfect. You just have to be principled. Understand why you are buying what you're buying. Are you buying it because you want growth? Then you accept the headaches of real estate. Are you buying it for safety? Then you accept the lower returns of gold. Don't just buy gold because some guy on YouTube told you the dollar is going to zero next Tuesday. Don't just buy real estate because your dad said it's the only way to get rich. Make the decision with your eyes open. Look at the leverage, yes. Look at the cash flow, absolutely. But also look in the mirror and ask yourself, how much stress am I willing to carry? Because the real math, the math that actually matters, is the math of your happiness. A 20% return isn't worth it if you're miserable managing a property. And 0% return isn't worth it if you're paralyzed by fear of inflation. Find your balance. Use the heavy lifter to build your wealth, and use the shiny rock to protect it. It's not about choosing one or the other. It's about building a portfolio that mirrors the life you want to live. Thanks for sticking with me through this. I know it's a lot to think about, and honestly, I could talk about this stuff for hours. Money is fascinating not because of what it is, but because of what it represents, our choices, our fears, and our hopes for the future. If you found this helpful, if it changed even a tiny part of how you look at these two assets, share it with someone who is staring at their bank account right now, paralyzed by the exact same decision. And hey, maybe go check your attic. You never know what's up there. Until next time, keep your head up, your spreadsheets open, and your eyes on the real math. Talk soon.